Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our NetSuite Simplified webinar series, where we take one topic each month in NetSuite and we break it down, simplify it for you guys. As you can see on our screen, this month's topic is all about bill of materials. And so we've got one of our senior business consultants that will take you guys through. You can see Renee is also sharing her screen, or she's the one sharing her screen, but she'll be able to take us through some of the simple sides of bill of materials. Based on all of your experience, whoever's on the phone, we know some people might be experienced veterans in it. Some may be just trying to get their feet wet. So we'll talk about both ends of that spectrum. And so before we go into introductions, I just want to talk a little bit about what we covered last month in case you missed out. So last month's topic was the road ahead. And so you should be able to see that on your screen as well here. And that was all about improving your NetSuite instance for 2021. So kind of the start of the year, some tips and tricks about how do you keep your account clean, and what are some things to try to do to make the time to be able to get your system ready to go. So Dirk, one of our founding partner, and myself walked through all those tips and tricks. So if you missed out, you can reach out and get that recording. You can email us at netsuitesimplified@govirtualoffice.com, and we will get you that recording. And just as an overall reminder for this webinar, GoToWebinar is the tool that we use for it. It does have a chat function, so if you've got questions, feel free to comment there. If you've got suggestions, right? This is about collaboration too, as much as possible. So if you've got suggestions around bill of materials or you've got an additive, enter it there, and we'll talk about it as we get to the end. We get to Q&A and go through it then. So let's go into introductions. So for those who have done a webinar with us in the past, you may recognize my face, and actually Renee's. Renee's done demand planning in the past. So my name is Mark Miller. I'm the professional services manager at GoVirtualOffice. I've got 9 years in NetSuite specifically, doing consulting, implementations, whether it's small to enterprise size businesses, a lot of different industries. So a lot of background within the platform and with different companies. And I'll let Renee, you can introduce yourself.
Sure. Thanks, Mark. So hello, everyone. My name is Renee Linscheid, and I am one of the senior business consultants here at GoVirtualOffice. I hold an MBA in supply chain operations, and I've worked in the fields of biotech, electronics, and retail prior to joining GVO over 3 years ago. Those years of experience were in the areas of inventory, planning, and global sourcing, so kind of cover that whole spectrum of the supply chain. I look forward to speaking with you guys today regarding bill of materials. And however, before we get into that topic, we just want to make sure we go into a little bit of detail about GoVirtualOffice for those of you that are new to our webinar series for the first time.
Absolutely. So a few things about GoVirtualOffice. So the first couple things that come up is that we are a full service NetSuite provider. And what that means is that we sell the licensing, and we also implement, and we provide services for a lot of different companies that have NetSuite. So whether you are a new company trying to look at NetSuite or as a potential ERP, or if you've got NetSuite and you maybe have gone through rough implementation, anything of that matter, we're here to help. That is our life is centered around NetSuite. We've got consultants like Renee who've got a ton of industry background, whether it's actually outside of NetSuite too, which is incredibly important to be able to understand and translate the system requirements and all the system functionality and get it applicable to your business. So a lot of industry experience within our team. We've done hundreds of implementations. And that goes into our NetSuite expertise. We've got a lot of years in NetSuite as well, a lot of different functionality areas that we are experts in. So a lot to be gifted to our clients from that perspective. And then the proven process. One of the things that those that have worked with us know that we have a process that we follow because we've been refining it. We've been doing this for about 15 plus years, and we learn from each project, and we keep improving our processes. How do we roll out quality products, whether it's an implementation or a development solution? And then lastly, just national recognition. We were Partner of the Year in 2019 around Suite Success, which is a relatively recent methodology by by NetSuite in terms of how do we shorten up implementations, how do we get a system that is more ready for different industries, whether it's wholesale distribution, manufacturing, services, IT, right? The list goes on. And we're also on NetSuite's partner advisory board, so we've got a very close connection with the NetSuite team.
All right, so thanks for that, Mark. So let's hop into it and let's get started. So what we want to do today is talk about, things that we're going to cover. So essentially the bill of material, it sits at the very core of your manufacturing and your production process. Getting it right is critical to ensure that you're avoiding any costly mistakes, that you don't have any delays, and ultimately you don't have any unhappy customers. So with more complex products being produced and manufactured in industries today, it's really no longer possible for people to kind of have an archaic process of managing their bill of materials, whether it be just in Excel, some people have it on napkins, just someone's knowledge of what it is. People are really looking at what can they do to kind of manage those critical elements of manufacturing. And they're looking at software such as Oracle NetSuite to ensure they can manage their bill of materials in a more effective manner, making sure they are reducing those errors, whether it be because of manual input or just because of sheer duplication. So what we're going to plan on covering today is we're going to talk about what a bill of material is, or a BOM. We're going to talk about the importance of having those accurate bill of materials. Next, we're going to follow into what common mistakes can be found in BOMs. And lastly, we're going to touch a little bit about what advanced bill of material functionality is available in NetSuite. All right, let's get started. So what is a bill of material? So as you get into the industry, a bill of material or a BOM, mainly BOM, could mean multiple things. So you always want to make sure that acronyms are, you're consistent with what you're expecting. When I started in the industry, anybody in manufacturing knew that a BOM was bill of materials. But if you talk to somebody in finance, well, they think a BOM as beginning of month, two completely different aspects. So in our case of a bill of material, a BOM, it's the comprehensive inventory of the raw materials, your assemblies, sub-assemblies, any parts and components, as well as the quantities of each of those that are needed to manufacture a product. So essentially, it's your complete list of all items that are required. Another easy way to think about it, it's a recipe. What is it that you need in order to get to a final end product? So a bill of material is your recipe to produce a product. Next, let's talk about the different BOM structures that are available. Now, there can be many different structures, and a couple of those are either the single level BOM or a multi-level BOM. So we want to discuss those two specifically. So the single level bill of material is probably the easiest. It's a very flat structured BOM. This type doesn't show you the assemblies or sub-assemblies underneath of it. It does just show you what the corresponding quantities of each item that you need. So as you look at this example below, we're building the SAF 200 black. That's our product, if you think about it. And underneath, you just have a single list of each component that is needed. You can still see, the quantity that's necessary. So you see that BOM quantity field. And then, as far as what your unit of measure is on each of those. So that's a very simplistic look at a bill of material. All right. What we want to look at, though, is probably the one that is most commonly used, which is more of the multi-level. And your multi-level is more of a hierarchical BOM. It takes you into greater details and your specifics about parent and child coordination within that product. You can see the total material required. You can also see how the indentation works so that you can see that relationship from your parent and child products. So I want to highlight here and just talk about is, in this case, here is our product. It's the 28450 construction. This is what we consider the level 0 BOM. It is our final item that we're producing. That's in bold. And then again, we're looking at a NetSuite BOM detail. Underneath of it, you start with level 1. So that's the first indentation in. So this one we have is a 28283. It's a wall DS complete. And so when you think of that, it's like, well, what is that? Well, it's the combination of these next two indentations, which become your level 2. So this, again, it shows us how you're going from the main item to that next level down to what are the sub components that make it up. And then finally, you get into the raw materials necessary to make that next parent-child relationship. Okay. As we look into it, it tells us what the estimated cost is for each of those items. It tells us the units, so how many of each of those are needed to produce the item, and therefore then you also get your calculated estimated cost. And we'll go into a little bit more detail on why it's important to have the accuracy of this information as you're building out your product. But again, this is probably, the most common one because it gives you that visibility into all of the items necessary to create your final product. Okay. So what is the importance of having an accurate bill of material? I mean, it seems pretty logical, but essentially the well-defined bill of material is going to help your organization plan for material purchases. It's going to help you estimate your cost of goods. It helps you to track all the material requirements. You want to make sure that you're having accurate records. And ultimately, you're making sure you're reducing waste. By ensuring you have all those details buttoned up, it just brings your production process, closes that loop together. So let's look at what those, again, talk a little bit more about the well-defined BOMs and those bullet points that we talked about here. So as I mentioned, it's essential that your information in your bill of material is accurate and precise. The bill of material impacts how much raw materials you can buy, your available inventory level, and also ensures that your production process is going to run smoothly. If you have any errors within this information, it can result in costly delays, and even it could bring your manufacturing line to a halt. Again, if your individuals do not have the inventory necessary to produce an item, they're going to sit idle, and that is a very expensive process to have. Running out of inventory is just one problem, albeit it's a pretty big problem, but you also just want to make sure that your production or your manufactured item doesn't falter because of the fact that your information is not correct. And so, what does that mean? So again, if you're poorly organized or if you have out-of-date information and a lack of detail in your bill of material, you can also create just confusion within the plant or in your production process. It's going to create costly errors or delays. You could even run into the fact that, maybe you end up having a faulty item that goes out to your consumers, and that's nothing that you want to deal with, from just a proof of product that you're producing. You want to make sure that you are providing the best product to your end users. Another big component of having those well-defined bill of materials, it helps to ensure that you've got traceability within your process. So, especially if you're someone who has any lot material that you need to be able to go back and ensure that you can tell exactly which item or which manufacturer you utilize to make your product. Having an accurate bill of material makes your record keeping so much more consistent. It ensures that everything is there and you can track to the end of what you have. Once you have an accurate bill of material, you're able to use NetSuite's costed BOM inquiry screen. And the benefit of having that costed BOM inquiry screen, it allows you to go through and see what the cost breakdown is for that assembly item. It allows your finance or your accounting team to ensure that they're looking into what the cost of goods are. Are there potentially any errors within the component breakdown? Is there anything that they maybe want to take into consideration when they're determining the final retail price of that item based again on what those cost of goods are going into it? So again, by utilizing NetSuite's platform, everything is in the same system, in the same cloud, and that's where all those cross departments have the ability to see your information to make timely decisions for the business. All right, so with that, we've got some success factors that you can use when you are establishing and maintaining your effective bill of materials. So the first one is, the most important thing that you can do is making sure that your information is in the system early. And what does that mean? As soon as you start understanding your item that you're going to build, start getting that item built in NetSuite. Start, noting what are those components and making a list of that information. by keeping track of that information, you're less likely to forget something. Now, as we talk about though, that next step is, but don't stress about every little thing going into the database. You might seem, well, that seems counterintuitive. Well, however, there's, two ways to look at it. Number one, try to utilize the ability to import into NetSuite. Use a CSV process of, if you've got it in Excel already, building the item up that way. Don't rely so much on manual data entry. Again, if you do that step, it's fine. Just make sure within your process that you have it built in, that someone is validating that that information is correct. And also, make sure the items that you're putting in there, are worthwhile and meaningful. Meaning any items that, you are prepared to repair or replace in your process, you want to make sure that you're tracking all of those, because again, you're going to want to make sure in your planning process, you're taking into account how much you're going to need. With that, as well as some of your consumables, you don't necessarily have to put those in there. They may just be some non-inventory items. But again, just at least making sure that the information you're building out in your BOM gives enough information so that the individuals that are executing that production know what they need. A big thing is to make sure that you do have a robust process in place to manage these changes. It's important that management from a tops-down perspective supports the changes as well. Again, it's critical to ensure that your information is accurate. So again, from an organizational structure, from top down and bottoms up, everyone needs to be on the same page in regards to ensuring that you've got an accurate bill of material. So whether, you want to have it be, management of change or a configuration change, or just, someone who is, an inventory or a material specialist, that really ends up being their job, is they're ensuring all the information within that is correct, that they're getting updates on any redesigns, any updates on material changes, part substitutions. Someone needs to ensure that that information is being communicated throughout the organization and you're all on the same page, and those details are truly getting into the bill of material in an accurate and a timely manner. A big one is, don't forget about your obsolete assets. This is one that even when I was in the production world, I came in and looked at some bill of materials and started questioning, what is this item? Why is it here? And someone hadn't taken off an obsolete item. And ultimately what happens with that is, if it's in there, our case, it was a very expensive item, someone was continually purchasing that item. It was no longer needed. We swapped it out with a different process or a different item, but someone didn't take it off the bill of material. So in the planning process, it continued to look at that item and say, you know what, we need more of it, even though it was never being recorded into stock. That kind of got into that demand planning comment that we made, in those previous months. But again, it all comes into the same effect. If you're not keeping that accurate bill of material, you start purchasing things that you don't need, or you've got a critical item that has not got added to that bill of material. And so now either your production floor has stopped, it's spending time trying to find an item that's no longer there, or again, it creates that mass confusion and you don't have a seamless process from beginning to end. And kind of wrapping it all together with this is, just again, making it part of your culture. It's not something that you can randomly do. You need to make sure that everyone in the organization is committed to having accurate information and establishing that BOM integrity, okay? Making sure that everyone is accountable for their part of the process is important, again, to ensure that you are sending out the best product within your area of expertise. So we kind of touched on it a little bit, but I want to spend a little bit more time talking about, well, what are some of those common errors in bill of materials? Again, might be things that you can pick up on, or, some of you may be related to say, yeah, you know what, we had some of that. Or again, if you're someone that's starting new and starting to look at your bill of materials, take some of these things into account. So one of the first ones is, we kind of talked about, is that wrong component quantity, or an inaccurate inventory quantity. Inaccurate inventory that we talked about, it can lead to stalls and delays in production. It adds in, valuable time into the overall product design cycle, because now you've got people that are looking for the right item, or you're having to wait for an item to come in because it wasn't produced correctly, someone wasn't ordering the right item. Again, it's all a snowball effect into not being able to continuously move on within your production process. The missing component on a BOM. This again talks about those costly expenditures. You know, one of the biggest things that you can run into is if you are missing a valuable component on the BOM is, again, since you didn't order it, you may now be experiencing expedited freight or shipping charges to get that into your facility in order to continue with the production process. Again, it might not seem like it's a lot, but if that happens continuously and you don't make that correction, all of those expedited shipping fees start to add up, and now your cost of goods starts to balloon. You really don't need to incur those costs. And again, if you just had that accurate bill of material, it would be seamless. You would know which items that you needed to produce. The next one is an inaccurate costing of the product, your accounting variances. So as I showed in the multi-level bill of material, we showed you the column in which the estimated cost was listed. If you have an inaccurate cost, whether it be too low or too high, that error impacts the overall either return on the investment. It can lead to problems on, what are your margins that, your marketing team, your management team is deciding they're going to sell an item for. But it also, in some cases, if it's, really wrong, let's say it's way too low, you're going to start putting some financial distress on the organization that's not necessary. So again, a too low of a cost, maybe they're not selling the item for too much. And in all actuality, they're not making a return on the investment. You're almost going to start giving it away. If you don't have enough money coming in, that impacts all areas of the organization in regards to, being able to have cash on hand to pay your bills, pay your employees, whatever those expenses are to run the business, you start to put that distress on the organization. Next one, out of spec production. So, what does that mean? So if your production is out of spec, meaning that, maybe you identified an error, so you made an update to your bill of material in a previous batch. If you don't have that updated, you're going to lead to multiple rejected lots or rejected batches of material being produced. So if you're in the process of where you do a quality step at the end of your production cycle and an item that is in there is subpar or it's not the right one, you're going to continue to keep failing until that's correct, because either you swapped it out with a more superior product, you've decided that, that item's not necessary, we've done something different to it. Whatever the case may be, is that you're going to continue to have repercussions within your production process and just setbacks by not having the correct information, your up-to-date spec on building that unit. And ultimately, if you're not doing a quality check and it's going out of the facility as is, you're going to lead to dissatisfied customers. Whether it's that you are a provider to another, a B2C, someone's using your product to put into their end unit. Again, it's that snowball effect that you may no longer become a supplier of choice if you are producing subpar material. Or again, if you are more of a B2B, say going right to that end user, you may be running into some liability concerns. And this is where we talk about in our next step is that potential for liability claims and just customer return of your product. So if it's unnoticed, again, you have a huge liability potentially coming back to you on any recalls. Think to some current events. The whole cell phone explosion. That was something that happened a couple of years ago. An inaccurate component was inside of cell phones and things started blowing up. I mean, that's a huge one. Just recently, there was a car manufacturer who has a product that is causing cars to start going on fire. So again, some of these liabilities and claims, you want to make sure is that your bill of material is accurate. It's the best components going into that product, and also that you're ensuring that you are doing your quality checks all the way along to make sure that you are producing that best product going to your customer. So next we want to talk about is just some of the advanced features that you could see within NetSuite regarding advanced bill of materials. So within the advanced bill of materials, as your business becomes more mature, your processes are more finessed, NetSuite does have an advanced bill of material option that you could use to open the door on some additional functionality. We will call out, though, it's not just an easy flip of the switch. You really need to look at it and be methodical about making that decision. Do some due diligence to do validation, whether you have a sandbox account or maybe you're someone that takes advantage of the release preview when it's coming into your environment. Utilize those for times when you want to go through and make sure what is the impact of enabling an additional feature within your NetSuite account. Again, if this is one that you turn on just in production, there are some ramifications and you can't just easily turn it off. So you want to make sure that you, again, are doing that due diligence and looking into what are the effects. We are going to look at doing an additional webinar regarding the advanced bill of material functionality, going into it in a little bit more detail, sharing it. But what I just want to do is kind of call out, what are some of those options that it provides to you? Again, it might just be that you're someone who is utilizing just natural assembly bill of material functionality in NetSuite and not even aware of what the advanced functionality can provide to you. So one of the things that you have the ability with an advanced bill of material is you can copy existing BOMs to create new BOMs. And what does that mean? So maybe you're producing a new item. It might be similar to something that you're already offering. And instead of going from scratch, you can take that previous BOM, copy it to create it and attach it to the new one. Again, it just reduces the amount of setup time that you have to hand key all those components that are going into the new item. You do have the ability as well that you could use a single bill of material across multiple assemblies. So this could be an example of where you have a sub-assembly, and those sub-assemblies may be broken down by color. And so what you want to do on each of those is, the components that are similar to all of those are on a BOM. Link it together. The other piece of those items may be that they've got a subsection on applying paint, and that paint color is what's unique to each of those BOMs. That's, again, a different level that you can go up, but you could utilize a sub-assembly process to give you the linkage of that same assembly. You also have the ability to assign multiple BOMs to a single assembly. This kind of gets down, a little bit further. We've talked about it when it comes to locations, but within this BOM, maybe you've got something that it's very, very similar from a consumer standpoint. So one BOM may be specific with one vendor's, let's say a vendor's component of like a screw or a certain powder that they produce. But you have a second bill of material that maybe that one is utilizing a different item. Again, from a consumer standpoint, they won't know the difference. They can't see the difference. But you as a producer or the manufacturer, you can determine which bill of material you want to use to produce that essential batch or that production assembly. We can copy existing manufacturing routings. You can create new routings. Again, routings and work in process is going to be a little bit of a spoiler. That's going to be next month's webinar topic. But it's going to allow you to see, how does that functionality, again, that copying existence, that really helps you, again, to eliminate a lot of the manual steps, create some efficiencies, and make sure that you're getting accuracy going through. So that is a great benefit of this functionality with an advanced bill of materials. You can designate a bill of material for assembly or a sub-assembly based on location. An example of that is, let's say you're producing, let's just say a bicycle, and you've got manufacturing plants in both Canada and the US. And what you can do is, in the Canada location, you could have a bill of material specific to Canada. And the reasoning for that is, again, it kind of comes back into maybe the vendor base that you're using are unique to the Canada location, or on the same flip side, for the US location, You maybe have some vendors that are very local within your plant. So you've got a reduction in the shipping time that it takes to get the components there. So you've got a bill of material that's specific for the components used in your US manufacturing location. You have the ability to define your yields at a component level on a bill of material when utilizing the advanced bill of material functionality. So that's, again, something that is very specific. If you're think of a recipe, or in the ability to create solutions or components that use weighted products, you could go through and say, what, for my sodium chloride, yes, it says that I have to use 3 grams, but to measure out exactly 3 grams, maybe that happened. So you plan for the fact that you want to have a 5% yield, an additional yield on top of that. It's going to help to ensure that for any loss that you have in measuring it out, or again, just the ability to make sure that your end product is giving you that right manufactured quantity. You're also at the same point now taking into account that you are reducing your material inventory at that same level, so that it may at the same point say that you might have a little bit less. It's helping you that when you start to get to the end of that batch or the end of the product, you're not looking to say that I can produce product because your calculations may be too high or too low. So again, it just helps for that, the inventory accuracy and how much you are taking out to produce each product. Another one is the ability to have multiple revisions for a bill of material, so your effective start and end dates. Nice thing about this functionality is, especially if you're trying to work through a component or something that you have in stock, you may already know that you're going to swap over to a different part, or something else that's manufactured. So if I'm looking at it and I can say, so today's 3/10, what, I know that I have enough material in stock to work through production up until 4:30 on this particular revision. But now with any production starting on 5/1, I want this new bill of material to be the effective date. What your demand planning is going to do, or just your ordering items, it's going to make sure that you're looking into what are those components based on that date, that particular start date of your bill of material, and it's going to start looking at those components going forward, and it's going to obsolete then your current bill of material once you hit the end date. So again, it's that whole change management aspect, making sure that you know where your cutover is going to be. In this instance as well, though, is if that, your start and end dates, if you do start to run out of your material early, you want to make sure that someone is taking that into consideration and almost putting an alert in the system so that they can move that effective start date sooner if you are running out of material. Because the last thing you want to do is you don't want to go ahead and actually order some of that old or obsolete stock. So make sure that you are adjusting your start dates to get the accurate inventory in the system sooner. All right. So now we've kind of given you some insight into, bills of material. Some of you are probably itching to get started, or you have some questions on, I'm seeing this issue with my bill of material, or I'm seeing this issue within NetSuite. GVO is here to help. Any way that we can offer you some service, or even if you're an existing customer of ours, we want to make sure that, we're able to help you explore any opportunities that are available. If you are one of our current clients, feel free to reach out to your senior business consultant. We are happy to, explore what are those options, understand what the business need is to offer up some type of a solution. If you are new to goVirtualOffice, as we've mentioned before, utilize that NetSuite Simplified at goVirtualOffice.com. Express, again, your interest to us on wanting to learn more about how GVO can assist you. It doesn't have to be just on this topic of bill of materials. It can be on anything that you're either having an issue trying to solve within your business processes. It might be helping to understand what functionality NetSuite can help you build into the next level of your organization as well. So feel free to reach out to us, and we would be happy to do an assessment review to get started with you. All right. So in summary, just kind of tie a bow around the conversation that we've had, Now, we covered a lot of topics and a lot of information in a short amount of time, but some of these points have probably resonated with you and your current business needs. These ideas are important, and we want to ensure that you are improving the accuracy of your manufacturing and your production operations. A quote that's kind of sat with me is a quote from Doug Wallace, and I'm just going to share that with you here quick. So, of course, it's not easy. The easy thing to do is to do nothing and to continue to live with the consequences. So even if you can't erase all the mistakes of the past, at least put something in place to keep the situation from getting worse. Once you can keep up, it's a lot easier to catch up. And that really is important. You don't want to feel like it's a daunting task. You have to kind of bite the bullet, get it accurate, and once you're there, then it is a lot easier to manage all the changes that can be happening. So in closing, the most important aspect for building your bill of materials is just take the time and set it up correctly. Don't rush into the process blindly, and do some due diligence. Be methodical in your approach. And, if anything else, take away some of these key suggestions that we've provided today. And that's just going to, again, to help your process to be successful. All right. So Mark, if you'd like to share what's next.
Yeah, and I just a couple of things too off of your last the quote that you brought up and one of your previous slides that kind of I was thinking about as you're going through it. Me being the process person that I am, it's important as you go through and you're implementing something new like bill of materials, or you're just trying to define the item creation process, is to really sit down. And Renee brought this up, it's got to be a part of your culture. Everyone's got to be involved, and that really shouldn't be taken lightly. I can't tell you how many times I've seen clients have one person that's entering items, which may be the end result, but if they are just owning that process, you end up with items with the wrong accounting information on there. Marketing didn't even look at it. There's a lot that goes into adding a new item, right? Or even adding a new product line that's even larger of an effort. So one of the things, just as like a tip that I've seen, and there's obviously more fancy ways that you can go about it, but Renee mentioned doing a CSV import to bring in your items. The one thing that's nice around that is you can play a little bit of a game called pass the file. And someone starts, I know it's kind of silly. So, someone starts with generating the initial information, whoever is that, maybe the engineering team or the product team that develops that, hey, we need this new item. And they pass the file to the other department to fill in the accounting information, or to the next team, right? Determining who needs to touch that to make sure that your items are accurate is incredibly important. And, another way to simplify, because, pass the file, it can be a little bit manual, is to make sure that your accounting team, for example, I'll continue with that. They maybe provide whoever's uploading rules that, hey, if it's this type of class, or if it's this type of item, however you categorize them, that it should be hitting these types of inventory accounts, et cetera, right? So there's quite a bit to think through there. And just to make sure that you have that process, it's often overlooked. It's like, oh, it's just an item. Well, no, it's not. It controls your GL impact. It controls quite a bit in NetSuite. So just something to think about as you guys move forward. So I do see we also have a few questions out there, but in terms of what's up next, we are going to be talking about WIP and routing. So Jamie, one of our team members, is going to kind of take the baton from Renee and go forward on talking about WIP and routing, which is an involved process, right? And setting up your BOM is kind of stage one, and then seeing how it flows through your production, flows through your manufacturing, involves WIP and routing. So as I say always, if you've got either you're interested yourself, or you've got a team member that might be interested, might be a good idea to give them a nudge and say, hey, tune in to the next GVO webinar series, and we'll go over some of that WIP and routing. And that's going to be on April 14th. You guys can see that on the screen, April 14th at 10 a.m. Central. So mark that on your calendars. We obviously will do our email reach out. You can follow us on LinkedIn, which obviously posting there as well. So with that, we do have a couple questions, and I'm going to start off with one of them that was just from Ben, you were asking about, hey, when can I get the recording? My team, they haven't even woken up when by the time these webinars are going on. So I'm sorry about our timing on that. I totally understand. That's always a troubling problem with getting these scheduled. So we are sending out the recordings about a day or two after each one of the webinars. They are also grouped up in YouTube. So we do have a YouTube channel out there. So we can take down your name and also just do a quick shout out to you, so you have all the information that you need to share with your team when they wake up. I'm sure it's the first thing that they're going to want to open up in the morning is a nice webinar to learn more about NetSuite, but definitely a very good question. So I'll start with the top, and these questions now, Renee, are going to go into bill of materials. So the first one is, if you have an incorrect BOM cost, what is the best way to correct that? And that was from Giovanna.
So again, it might be a couple of different things that you're looking at. Is one, your incorrect BOM cost. One you're going to want to look at is the component itself inaccurate. So going into that inventory item, if you have to make any updated or adjustment, if it already is an item that has been produced and put into production, so now you've already got finished goods in inventory, what you're going to want to do is to figure out, well, what was the correct cost supposed to be, and then you're going to do an inventory adjustment to adjust your cost to get it more in line. So let's say if it was put into inventory at $1 and really it's supposed to be in inventory at 70 cents, you're going to want to do that adjustment on the number of units that are at the wrong cost and bring it back down.
Yeah, and it also plays into what costing method you're using as well. NetSuite's got a lot of flexibility when it comes to that. So at inventory adjustment, from an average costing standpoint, right there, standard costing, you get into your revaluations, and there's a little bit more into it. So depending on where you're at, there's a lot of info out there. I don't want to give you kind of a high level answer because it does also depend. You have to hone in onto where is the costing issue. Is it what specific sub-assembly or assembly item that's causing you the pain? You got to kind of narrow in onto where the issue is, and there could be a couple different routes, but make sure you also consider what is the costing method that you're in, and make sure that that's set up correctly as well. And just in general, as you guys are setting up your items, make sure that costing method is set up right away. Being able to change that in the future and move and adjust is not necessarily an easy option when it comes to NetSuite. You have to bring in your items. So, okay. And if you've got more questions on that, Giovanna, if you got a specific example or scenario, obviously reach out to us. We're happy to look at it. So the other question is from Randy. Have you heard if NetSuite will offer a mass update option for BOMs?
Off the top of my head, I haven't seen it, but that's definitely something that we can look into and see in any of the future functionality that's been released. Just trying to figure out, what you would mean in regards to also that mass update functionality. Is it a single item in multiple bills of materials? What type of a mass update functionality are you looking for? So maybe just a little bit more clarity in that.
Yeah, we can, like Renee mentioned, we can check release notes too as well, and just look at the existing functionality, verify if that's an option. A lot of times what we see for those mass updates or changes or adjustments is through a CSV because of the complexity.
Yep.
And let's see, I think he added some more there. So they have updates that affect about 10,000 BOM items that can't be done by hand. I can imagine.
I would agree.
And CSV imports are cumbersome. That is absolutely true. Okay. And that goes in general with bill of materials. It's one thing to make sure your team knows that, hey, this isn't necessarily an easy process to maintain this level of detail, but it's necessary. So completely understand. And Randy, maybe we can take a look at that one offline too, and send you some additional information as to kind of the best practice to approach 10,000 items and updating them.
Yep, would absolutely agree with that.
All right. So that looks like it's the list of questions that we have. So we can wrap up here a little bit short. Again, as Renee mentioned, reach out to us if you guys have questions or scenarios you want to cover. NetSuite Simplified at goVirtualOffice.com is the email. Or if you're an existing client, reach out to your business consultant. All right. Thank you guys. Have a good one. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.